faith is in trusting that the universe is as it's meant to be and finding the joy in that.
The Change Podcast. Everything changes, everything stays the same.
Why does everything keep on changing?
Hello, welcome back to the Change Podcast.
Hiya, I'm Shane. This is my beautiful daughter Jemma. I
Hello.
must say, dear, you are looking pretty spectacular today. That outfit is gorgeous. And how long is your hair getting?
Too long.
What are you aiming for? To hit the floor?
I'd love to get it to my bum.
Okay, how close are you now?
I think I'm about a year off.
Okay.
Yeah.
Has it ever been this long before?
No, this is the longest it's ever been. And I'm just going to keep growing it until I get sick of it
Okay.
and then probably chop it all off and just have a nice professional clean bob. But while I've got the long hair, I'm gonna do it.
I don't know. I reckon it'd drive me crazy, but it looks beautiful. So
It drives me crazy. But beauty is pain.
there
If there's
you
anything
go.
I've learned from womanhood, it is beauty is pain.
Oh, there you go. All right. Is it worth it? Well, yes, of course it's worth it.
We only get one life, so you might as well live it beautifully.
Very true. Well, it's great to be back. We're doing an update podcast. It's been a few months now, hasn't it? I don't exactly know how many. We've sort of been busy and we keep saying, let's do this weekend, and we get the gear ready and then don't go ahead. But here we are again, so it's good to be back.
Yeah, I think it's been about 6 months now.
No, wow. All
Yeah,
right.
but we needed that time. I needed to cocoon for a bit.
Yeah.
As much as I love doing this podcast, it definitely this year has come to a point where it's been difficult to maintain the level of vulnerability that I have been throughout this journey, because it's kind of it's been the mental health year.
Yeah.
So we'll get into that, but it is good to finally be back. I hope that we haven't frustrated too many people with our slowness.
The truth is, there's so many podcasts in the world. Maybe infrequent ones are not a bad thing nowadays. So anyway, we're going to cover today update on physical health. We're going to talk about sexuality, and then we'll touch on mental health. So let's start with the physical health update. What's been going on for you in terms of physical recovery from surgery over the last 6 months? It's such a massive surgery. Even now, when I think about what they've done, it's miraculous and amazing and scary. And when you go through the surgery, despite reports from other people that, it's difficult and complex, but it all works out well, you never know, do you? So how has that process been for you, and how are you going?
Yeah, thankfully, a lot of the physical healing is past now. I remember in the last podcast we recorded, I was still sitting on my donut cushion. So I'm no longer sitting on a donut cushion.
She is sitting on a cushion, but that's to get her up to my height.
Yeah, this is for filming purposes. But yeah, the
So you're
physical
not in-
healing has
yeah.
gone really well. I'm not in
Yeah.
pain anymore. I still have some inflammation. There are areas of like numbness where there's more inflammation still, and there's still little pockets of pain, but for the most part, it's not in the forefront of my awareness anymore. It's all healed. I haven't had any complications, which is a serious blessing, and it's looking really beautiful and natural, which is amazing as well.
It's a relief, because I have to say, as a parent, watching some of those early months, it was quite stressful not to get worried. And as you're reporting back, because there was a lot of pain and it seemed slow, at least from my end, probably even slower from your end.
Yeah.
And you're sort of thinking, oh, other people have said you wouldn't be experiencing this pain by now. But so do you think it went faster or slower, or it's just what it is, and it's just great to have got through to this side of it?
Yeah, I think it just is what it is, and it's great to be done with it. It was really I would say a traumatic experience in many ways. It's not it's not an experience that I would recommend lightly to people. In fact, I have made it my position on GRS, having done it myself, is that I would never recommend it to anyone, because it really has to be a decision that they make. And yeah, my approach is now more around erring on the side of caution, to be like, make sure you're really ready to go through this process, because it was mentally tumultuous. And I was very blessed to have a really supportive family and friends, and also a Bachelor of Psychology to help me be really aware of my emotions and process them in a healthy way. But yeah, don't go lightheartedly into gender reassignment surgery. It's a big
Do you
ordeal.
think you did go a bit too lightheartedly into it or not? I'm curious about that.
I think I walk lightly on this earth. I don't think I take things very seriously, and I think that that's both a blessing and a curse. I love, I try not to worry about things, and it helps me be really decisive. But it also means I can be less prepared than I should be. So yeah, it definitely caught me off guard how hard it was going to be. As much as I was prepared in my mind for like whatever was to come, there is no preparing for 6 months of constant pain around your genitals. And really, I think the most difficult part was not even the pain; it was just the fear.
Yeah.
It was the constant
I
fear
agree,
that something
yeah.
might go wrong, or that it may not heal properly, or that I might need a revision surgery. So it was just really hard to find peace in that process, and to just trust in the universe and remain optimistic. So yeah, it was a very shaky period,
Yeah.
where I didn't have a lot of secure ground to tether myself to.
Do you regret the decision now?
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
Not at all. No.
Yeah.
Never. Yeah, and I never have experienced regret. There's been fear
Yeah.
of like, yeah, why do I have to go through this, and what if it goes wrong? I guess was my experience. And yeah, I've had a few moments throughout the journey of like really coming back to questioning myself deeply again. And yeah, I know that this is something that I had to do. As much as like I've had a few people say to me like, "Oh, this was a choice for you," and I think that people have gotten the wrong impression, from the fact that I wasn't suicidal before my surgery, that I therefore made a choice, that I was just that being trans was more of a choice for me than for other people. And I really want to emphasize that I definitely did not choose to want these things. I definitely didn't choose to hate myself or my life for having the body I was naturally given. And while I am an optimistic individual, and my gender affirmation process was more about seeking euphoria than escaping from dysphoria, it has been a huge existential identity crisis my whole life. Not by choice, that I always felt like I was feminine energy manifested in male form, and I couldn't get past that weird glitch of nature that made me have to experience this. And there was a really deep core frustration with the universe that, I had to live in this body for the rest of my life. And so when I started to see trans people around me and come to realize my identity as a trans person, I was like, oh my God, maybe I don't have to live in this body for the rest of my life. So that's not really a choice.
Yeah. Well, no more than being heterosexual male and choosing to behave as a heterosexual male is a choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Life
exactly.
is, to some degree, life's all a choice.
You can choose whether or not you drink wine, but you can't choose whether or not you enjoy the taste of it.
Yeah.
It's just you either do or you don't.
All right. So in terms of the physical healing, and yeah, I think I can ask you this, but you don't have to answer. I think the thing that was one of the things I was very fearful about, because I've lost the capacity to orgasm. So I really do sense, I grieve that loss, and its impact on my life. And I thought, God, because I don't mean to blaspheme, but God, because I've gone through this, loss, I can't imagine risking the loss of that, with this injury. So have you been able to orgasm, for example?
Yeah, without going into too much detail, I have been able to orgasm. It was about just after this 6-month recovery mark. Sorry, I am navigating weird microphone issues because we don't have a microphone stand. So please excuse my fiddling while I'm trying to talk. But yeah, just after about the 6-month mark, I managed to have an orgasm with a vibrator. And yeah, it was the most deep sense of relief, such an emotional relief. Being able to orgasm, I cried for a long time afterwards. That was kind of like, I think that was the turning point for me to say, okay, I am healing. This does work. My body still functions. How my body still functions is a complete mystery to me, given everything that it's been through, but it works. And so now I'm relearning my body. It's actually really funny because in many ways now I feel like a virgin again.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I work anymore. And so that's kind of where I'm at now, is like reconnecting to my sexuality in a new form, and learning my body again. So that's really exciting.
It is exciting, yeah.
Yeah, it's a really fun path.
Yeah,
and,
wow.
And
is this is a weird question maybe, but is orgasm very different to what it was before? Is it better, worse, or just different, or how do you?
Yeah. Okay. So it's interesting. The orgasm changed a lot just from hormone replacement therapy.
Yeah.
Like probably around 6 months of starting hormone replacement therapy, my orgasm changed, feeling from being very penis centric to like more around my body. And so it's still similar to that. The orgasm hasn't changed a lot from there. It still feels the same in my body now as it did. But the thing I had to get used to, this was a really weird feeling, was like, was engaging a muscle down there when I was getting close. Like there's just actually not a muscle there anymore.
Right. Yeah.
And so there was this, I guess the orgasm is different now because I had to learn how to climax without the feeling of tensing a muscle.
Right.
And that's going to sound weird for women, but I'm sure a lot of guys will get that.
Yeah.
And now it's like the orgasm, it is a lot more receptive. It's a lot more like, it's less pushing into muscles and tension, and it's more like receiving sensation and energy moves around my body. So yeah, it's quite different. I do much prefer it because it feels a lot more affirming for me. And for the first time in my life, I'm actually like suddenly really keen to be more sexual with people and explore. That's really fun.
Well, there you go. That's a great relief, and it's exciting. It's one of the great joys of life. So I'm just very, very happy. I guess that does then lead to the next question, which is sexuality, because I guess I just assumed you were heterosexual before, or at least that's the way in which you'd practiced your sexuality, that you might, once you transition, be lesbian. That's because I have heard of transgender women who that's the case. But you've been telling me that actually your sexuality has changed, and I I mean, you're probably more open to all types of sexual experience, but you are looking forward to having sex with men, and that's just an interesting transition. And yeah, tell us about your sexuality and that transition and why and how that's occurred.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting journey, that one. I definitely didn't anticipate any changes in my sexuality going into this process, and I've since learnt that it's actually a really common experience, that hormone replacement therapy for trans people very often comes with a shift in sexuality, and that can be really dramatic or not, or like not much of a shift at all. But yeah, I think I would have identified as heterosexual before, but definitely had curiosities. But it's really hard to like understand fully because I can look back on a lot of my previous feelings and behaviors now and see how there very well could have been this repressed interest in men that I was holding all along, but that I never let myself feel, whether like maybe because of some kind of internalized homophobia. But I think because I didn't feel affirmed in my gender identity, I just didn't really like feel affirmed in my sexuality either, I guess. And I was just yeah, I definitely found women attractive before, and there was with testosterone like a visual sexual attraction towards women, but yeah, my attraction has changed a lot, and now I find men more sexy. I think I can still have a romantic emotional connection with a woman, but I haven't experienced that for a little while, and I've been having a lot of crushes on men, and haven't been able to action any of those yet, which has been its own little heartache kind of story. But yeah, I'm learning how to flirt with men and approach men in a way that's feminine and kind of engage that energetic attraction with them.
It's challenging, in some of the conversations we've been having because you've got to deal with how men respond to you as a trans woman, and it's complex because in some cases there's fetishization around trans women, and then there's also rejection, and so to get someone to see you as a beautiful person sexually, and then you've got your own insecurity and sort of fear about that maybe also framing some of your sense of how people are responding to you. So it's really early days, and these are really complex, and maybe all people when they're new in their sexuality and virgins looking at this big wide world have some degree of this, but it's obviously quite complex in transition.
Yeah. I haven't experienced any of the fetishization. I can't say that word now. Fetishization of trans people. I've experienced more of the rejection side of it.
Yeah.
And maybe that's partly because I have been harboring this fear and haven't been putting myself out there as much as I could be. But yeah, I've been testing the waters and trying to flirt with men that I found attractive, and I just haven't yet received a lot back in real life.
Which is a transition for you because you didn't have challenges with that before, did you?
No, it's been a really depressing actually aspect of this. It's like embracing being single for such a long period of time. I haven't kissed someone in over a year.
I've had a kiss. I've kissed you.
No, you haven't.
On the cheek.
Okay, I've had kisses on the cheek. I haven't had a romantic kiss.
No, I definitely haven't done that with you. We've got to erase this part of the tape. It came across creepy and I didn't mean it to.
Yeah, no, I haven't had a kiss in over a year.
Yeah.
And so that is that's a bit depressing
And
sometimes,
look,
but
part
also
of that is you were going through a surgery. It's been difficult. So it's not all rejection, but so it's really complex, isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And part of my surgeries, like also I've been very cocooned, living in a little bubble. I haven't been meeting lots of new people. And so
Mm.
that has made it difficult. It's just a bit like, it's unfortunate that I finally feel ready to throw myself out the world. But there's a lot of still learning that has to take place before I feel comfortable and confident in that.
Mm.
But I have just signed up for a dating app on Friday.
What app?
For Hinge.
I was, of course, married at 19, well and truly before dating app time. Has it been exciting, scary? Why Hinge, by the way? Because it relates to change.
Hinge.
The hinge is
maybe.
the thing that it pivots around. Or...
Yeah. Poetic. I chose Hinge because I like the format of the profiles. There's prompts that you can respond to. So it's more likely that people will actually read your bio. I think a common thing on Tinder for trans women is that you say you're trans and people don't even read your bio. They just look through your photos and they're like, oh, she's hot. And then they find out you're trans and then will run away. And I just don't want to do that. So at least on Hinge, it lets me select my gender as trans woman, so I can let people know I'm trans. And it's been really affirming. It's been fun. A lot of dopamine. I've been getting lots of likes on Hinge and trying to embrace the small talk.
Is this where you might get some fetishization though? Because sometimes men looking to date trans women are looking for a trans person with a penis. It's sort of a halfway between, that there is this fetishization in pornography of, and they use terms that are not nice for it. So I'm just curious whether in Hinge, whether you might get some of that because people are expecting something different for you. And of course you've had gender reassignment surgery. So, which you're not going to write that on the profile, are you? So I'm just curious whether you might find some of that fetishization here, or am I wrong? That actually doesn't exist.
Oh, I'm sure it does. I don't know. I haven't experienced it yet. I've had a dating app for 3 days. And I've just been, very early stages chatting to people and just seeing who responds. I mean, I think there's just a little validating thrill in being liked by people finding me attractive is reassuring.
Lovely, yeah.
And
you are. It shouldn't need to be reassuring. Of course it does, but yeah.
Sadly, it's impossible to really find yourself attractive. It's something that you do need some external validation
That's true.
for sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm still in the early stages of just chatting to a few different people and seeing what comes of it. But yeah, I definitely when I first signed up for the app, I signed up, made my profile, started making dinner, came back to my phone, and I had 15 likes or something really quickly. And I was like, oh my God, wow, what's going on here? Do people realize I'm trans? I started feeling really insecure that people just weren't reading my profile or something. And, having that, confronting my internalized expectations of rejection for being trans. And I actually managed to I was speaking to one person about paradoxes, and he asked me how paradox shows up in my life. And I was like, babe, I'm a walking paradox. Feminine energy manifest in male form. And so I got to really explicitly say it to someone. And that was a little test for me to test the waters to see how's someone going to respond to me owning my transness. And he was like, wow, amazing. Vulnerability is so hot.
Right.
So yeah, that it's been healing actually having dating apps. So
Wow, you're the first person I've ever heard say that. Everyone else says the apps are so traumatic and so difficult. I guess it's 3 days.
I've only had it for 3 days. I haven't gotten into the trauma yet. Wait until I actually start going on dates with people. It might be a different story. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, well.
A lot of people really like, as much as people say dating apps are traumatic and suck, it's like they still have dating apps. I think that, yeah,
Well,
they're still getting
as a
something
person
from
who's
them.
not used them, I would imagine it just opens up the world to people you wouldn't otherwise meet. So
Yeah.
it's just that the process, maybe you open yourself up to meeting a lot of people who you wish you wouldn't otherwise meet, but still it opens up your horizons, doesn't it?
Yeah, but it's really easy to unmatch with people,
Yeah.
which is good. And yeah, I have been very resistant to dating apps for a long time, mainly because I just find texting people a really tedious pastime.
Yeah.
But yeah, I decided to give it a go, and it has opened the world up to me, which is cool. And it makes me feel less like I need to be looking for events to meet people. And yeah, for a while there, I was like, how do I even meet people? I feel like I have to be spending every spare second of my time at events, and
yeah, that's
a
probably
lot of
more
effort.
exhausting than sending a text, isn't it?
Yeah.
As stressful as texts can be. Oh, well, I think this is a watch that space, isn't it? So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
exciting. We'll
Very keen to
we've
see
got
how it
something to talk
progresses.
back on the next one. So
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so I guess this then, in the background of this conversation, we can say things are doing well, but it's been an up and down journey, and your mental health, you've struggled with your mental health. So what did you want to talk about in terms of that, and where you've been and where you are and where you hope to be?
Yeah. It's been a while. It's been a year of extremes. From the radical extremes of feeling affirmed in my body and feeling full of joy and excitement, to the depths of hating myself for where I'm at in my journey, I guess. So it's been up and down, and not to say that it's a bad thing. I think in one of my episodes, I expressed negative emotions, and a lot of people were really upset by it. And I just want to say here, I, in a sadistic way, I love suffering. I view it as an opportunity for growth. So while, yes, it's been a difficult year mental health wise for me, and I appreciate all of your concern and love, please don't feel like I'm not doing okay. I am well supported, and I'm learning a lot about myself through this. But to kind of like share my experience of that journey, part of it has been this journey of learning to love being single and find joys in life without the validation of affection, of having someone to call mine, and processing what I really wanted in love and what I felt like I was missing. And but I think the large part of the mental health thing for me has been like the second year. It's that point of change where I'm at the plateau. The initial phases are really quick. All of the physical changes start happening really quickly, and you have all these shifts emotionally and mentally. And it's now at this point where things have slowed down a lot. And I guess the work for me this year has been learning to love my transness. I think in the early phases of my transition, I was filled with hopes and expectations that I'd look super feminine and passable, which I don't want to use that word anymore. I should say my trans friend and I now use trans visible. So
Right.
I'm still trans visible.
Yeah.
And in some ways that has been a difficult thing for me to accept because of this fear that people will reject me for being trans, but this fear that my sexuality, I'm feeling attracted to men, but but it's the energy of masculinity that I'm really feeling attracted to. It's the boyish wildness and particularly gentle masculinity. But yeah, I've been feeling really attracted to that energy, and that energy is most often expressed by cisgendered men, and cisgendered men have perched themselves in this really fragile place on top of the hierarchy where they have some very specific conditions they need to meet in order to feel like, they're the man. And part of that is like, this fear around homosexuality. Like a lot of cisgendered men really are terrified of appearing gay. And they haven't actually done that work of processing their sexuality, or the fact that sexuality can be fluid, or that attraction can be experienced differently throughout a life. And the common thing I do hear from people is that they're scared about being attracted to me because they don't know if they're gay. Like they don't want to feel gay.
Yeah.
And I then have to say, well, I'm a woman.
Yeah.
You aren't gay for being attracted to me.
Yeah.
But that's that's a thing that is going on in the minds of cisgendered men. And for me, then I started feeling like I needed to fit into the norms for cisgendered women, particularly biologically, like, of being small and cute and having a really feminine voice. And I'm not those things. I am large.
Well, you are cute.
I'm cute.
But not small.
But not small. Yeah. I can be cute. Yeah. And I feel cute in my own ways. But also, like, my voice has been part of it. My voice has been like a constant frustration because it's often what causes me to be misgendered.
Right.
People will be gendering me correctly until I speak, or like if it's just a phone call, I always get sirs. Or if I'm like out and having fun with my friends and I start being silly and loud and making play voices or singing improvised songs, the moment I start using my voice in a free way, I start getting misgendered. And that is just shitty, for lack of a better word. It sucks that the moment I start to have fun and feel good in myself, I just get this like quick smack down by the universe of like, people are now perceiving you as a he.
Right.
So
that's one of the big impacts on your mental health.
Yeah. Because it's that like train of thoughts, which is going from people are seeing me as a he, therefore straight men are not going to be attracted to me because they're going to be scared of being gay, and therefore I'm not lovable, and
your brain progresses down this rabbit hole
of catastrophization of self and identity. And so I've had to go through that. Obviously, to overcome this is something that I have to face.
Yeah.
And I have been facing it. It's interesting because I have felt like throughout this year, like I keep having victories over it, but then it comes back again, but darker, and then I win over it, and then it comes back again darker, and it's like this iterative cycle of me slowly working through all of the layers of my fear of rejection, essentially. And it was even like last week, I was like really heavy-hearted all week and stuck in this like place of feeling unworthy, and like I just wanted to like retreat from all social settings. And I was actually at a friend's art collective event on the weekend, and she was bringing people together to be like really expressive and creative and extroverted. And she'd wanted me to come because she said, I see you in the space. And so I was like, okay, I'll come. And I wasn't necessarily feeling open to the experience, but I thought I'd put myself out there and see how I felt. And I get there, and one of the first things we start doing is going around and introducing ourselves. The activity was just say your name with an action and then say one word about how you're feeling. And the moment they said that, I was just like, I don't want to be here. I want to run home and cry. Like, I do not want to say my name with an action. That's too much expression for me right now. Because the moment I express myself, people are going to see me as male, and therefore they're not going to love me. And like that. It's that chain of thoughts.
Yeah.
But I decided to sit with it and just show up how I could in the space. And I just said, I'm not going to do anything I don't feel comfortable with. I can say my name with an action and say one word. That's an easy starting place for me. And so I just did it, and just, accepted the intensity of my feelings for those moments. And then we started like moving around the space and dancing and starting to like move into energy. And I was doing that and feeling the fun arising in me, and then feeling the fear around that. And I became aware of like this narrative that I was having, and it really helps me break past it to say like, okay, clearly I'm not going to meet the norms for cisgendered women. I am a trans woman. I am large. I am loud. I have a deep voice. Like, why am I hating myself for these things? These are things that I want to love about myself. Like, as much as my deep voice may not match what some cisgendered man is looking for in his partner, a deep voice is a soothing, nurturing, bassy voice, and I can do really fun things with my voice. And so, yeah, I came to this like realization that I have to accept dancing alone. I have to accept my uniqueness. I am different.
Yeah.
I was writing a poem. There was a line in it that I really liked, which is, concealing causes bleeding from the scratches and gashes from squeezing into spaces too small. And that really like captured it for me. Was
Who wrote that?
Me.
It's beautiful.
Thank you. It was an expression of how I was feeling in that moment, of just noticing how much I was hurting myself by trying to push myself into this box that I didn't fit into, instead of just accepting the fear of dancing alone. And it was a big process because I had this realization about the concealment first. So I was like, okay, maybe I need to accept dancing alone. And then it was like feeling into the feeling of dancing alone and the pain, how painful it is to dance alone. And I was like, okay, maybe I just need to trust that people will come and dance with me. And I was like coming into this notion of faith. I was like having faith that people will come and dance with me, that what I want will be given to me. And I was really averse to that for some reason. I didn't like the idea of faith. I couldn't put a finger on why exactly. It just felt cheap. It didn't feel like a real solution to the problem, just to have faith that what I wanted would be given to me. And I realized the problem isn't the faith. The problem is that I was caught in desire, that I wanted the world to be a certain way. So it's not having faith about getting what I want. The faith is in trusting that the universe is as it's meant to be, and finding the joy in that, letting go of what I want, and saying, okay, this current moment is already full. There's so much happening right now. There isn't space for anything else. There isn't space for what I want in this moment.
Yeah. It's a beautiful description of faith that really resonates with my Christian heritage. Because I think that's a beautiful definition of faith, which is not, faith is not the certainty that things are going to work out as you expect, that you're going to be happy, rich, wealthy, and faith is trust that through all of the ups and downs that you use the universe, others say God, is there and present. It's beautiful. Can I while you're in hearing of this, I've just been having a slight revelation as well, because in a sense you're rightly thinking about how you need to respond to this world and adjust your own thinking. But I think there is a challenge for us who are listening to this to hear why it matters that we use the right pronouns, and so it's not just, because I so often hear, why do they care whether we call them, what pronoun we use? But it's because it's so tied into your sense of self, your fear of rejection, your desire to be loved for who you are. And so it's not just, a sort of an intellectual self-righteousness. It ties into the challenge of insecurity that goes with transition. And so it does matter what pronouns we use of you and how we refer to you, that we use feminine ways of speaking, because it's an affirmation that enables you to be secure in yourself. So that's, for me, if you've often struggled about why pronouns matter, maybe we need a different word to pronouns, but why it matters that we affirm the gender of the person, whatever that might be, it's because it's tied into
how we understand ourselves.
Yeah.
So, and we all have, it is the right of every human being to understand themselves as they are, to self-define. There's no one else in the world that can tell me who I am better than myself. And so if I'm telling you who I am and you're refusing to acknowledge that, then what you're actually saying is that
I reject you.
I reject you.
Yeah.
So it's a big thing.
Yeah.
And it's a good point. The way that I'm approaching this is I'm trying to deal with the world as it is.
Yeah.
Trying to make peace with the world as it is for my own health. But also there's a lot of change that needs to happen in the world, and we need to, as a world, acknowledge and affirm gender diversity, because it has existed throughout human history. But I think this is actually a good segue into the way that I in letting go of my desires, I found a new meaning in my journey. And I think we've probably touched on this numerous times throughout the podcast, but it's something that always I come back to it, and then it slips, and then I come back to it, and then it slips, because it's hard to embrace this pain of dancing alone. But we as a society have the most incredibly restrictive gender norms. The moment a child is born, we take a crude inspection of their genitals, which are only the external form of their sex.
We do it before.
We look at
a scan, and we have a gender reveal party where we use a pink or a blue balloon that pops out of the sky. So it's earlier than birth. We're making that.
It's crazy. And the moment we do that, there's so many assumptions that we then put on that individual, from things as banal as what colors or toys they're going to want to play with as a kid, to things as serious as what careers they're going to do or even capable of doing, how they're going to be in relationship, what role they have in society. It is the most universal type of control that exists. And trans people have an opportunity to be gender leaders in this, to say, for me, I get to show up as a woman and show other women there are other ways to do woman. You don't have to be small and have a high voice and do your hair perfectly to be a woman. By acknowledging trans women, you create more space for all women. And it's the same for men. My trans friend Darby is an incredible trans man who's showing up as this beautiful, gentle masculine who's sensitive and has empathy and can express his emotions. And it's showing men that there are other ways to do masculinity as well, that expanding those boxes that we have of all of these assumptions, where we get to pioneer the foray into those territories that we've previously cut off from men and women. And while that might not be immediately emotionally gratifying for me in my desire to be loved and have a romantic relationship, I can still derive meaning from just my showing up in the world and choosing to be radically self-accepting. And so, yeah, it's really like it's funny. There are weekends when I like go and visit my friends up north, for example, and um, I get so many compliments about how radiant I am and how beautiful my self acceptance is and how much it helps them to be more self accepting. And I leave feeling so fulfilled. And then I get home and back into my little life routine and fall into the rut of like, like showing up is hard every day when I'm not getting these like gratifications that I'm used to of people finding me attractive and wanting to be with me. And, um, also I gave up a lot of privilege and power. I went from being near the top of the privilege hierarchy to very marginalized overnight. I experienced transphobia from a lot of people regularly, marginalization going into the petrol station and people like rudely calling me sir and like hammering it into me, like very intentionally using it. I experience things like that constantly, and it is hard to wear that, especially because I'm not used to it. And so this is an adjustment process, a humbling process of experiencing life as a minority, and I, in many ways, really value it. But yeah, it's been and it's given me a lot of wisdom about the experience of power and privilege. Um, And also, I don't have to exist in that frail little bubble at the top of the power and privilege hierarchy anymore, where my privilege could be taken away just by experiencing attraction to a man. There's a freedom in that.
There is indeed. Are we done, you reckon, for this week? It's been a very rich conversation.
Yeah, I think
Anything
so.
else
I think
you wanted to say?
there is one other thing I want to talk about, because we forgot to talk about it in the last podcast.
Okay.
Which this is part of the biggest self-care process involved in GRS that I've had to pick up is dilating.
Okay.
And I didn't talk about this last time because we forgot. But for the first 6 months since surgery, I've had to dilate twice a day for 30 minutes. So just sitting with a dildo, I guess. Technically a dilator, but
A dilator dildo. It looks like a
dilator
dildo.
dildo.
Yeah.
Just to keep the hole open. It's like a piercing. Like for a while, you just have to like keep it open and make sure the body isn't trying to heal and close. It's a very similar experience for like anyone who has vaginismus. Just dilating to expand the hole. So for the first 6 months, that was twice a day. I've since been doing it once a day. For the next until 1 year. I don't know where I'm at right now. I think I'm at about 10 months
All right.
now. So that's still ongoing. But after a year, I'll start to be able to reduce the frequency to once every 2 days, to every few days, to once a week, to, eventually the process will be just having sex will be enough. But that has been a very time-consuming thing, and it's been frustrating sitting in bed.
You're
morning and
experiencing
night.
what's called crypt time, Jem.
Crypt time, yeah.
It's for those not familiar, it's a concept in disability studies that life slows you down, and crypt time deals with the sort of the changes in the way in which you're experiencing time and in your interaction with the world that operates on this strict 24-hour schedule that has to be done at a certain time in a certain place and according to a certain, you've got to get to work at 9 and then you leave at 5. And in crypt time, you can't live like that. So you're experiencing a little bit of crypt time, Jemma.
Yes, I have been. Yeah, it has. It's really slowed me down and forced me to do a lot of reflecting and shorter activities, which has been good in some ways and annoying in others. But yeah, that's just a process in GRS that I thought might be interesting for people to know about.
Very good.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is a really interesting and rich conversation. I think it's about, our curiosity about transition, but more than that, it's about thinking what it means to be human and reflecting on our gender and sexuality. And hopefully that's not just about curiosity about how Gem's going, but that speaks to us and how we live as sexual and gendered beings in our own situations. So, peace and goodwill.
Much love.
The Change Podcast. Everything changes, everything stays the same.